Good day. It's an honor, a true honor to be back at the Federal Reserve and to take up this duty at a time of such consequence. I've been especially heartened by the warm welcome of old friends and new colleagues both. And I've listened closely to my fellow FOMC members, heard a lot of new ideas, new thinking, and genuine interest in moving the Fed forward. This week's FOMC meeting exemplified the very best of the Fed's traditions: rigorous debate, open-mindedness, commitment to mission, responsibility, and accountability for performance. In this business, they all add up to one thing: getting monetary policy right, or as near to it as we can do. That is our North Star. My colleagues and I are here to serve our legislative remit, which you've heard us say before: price stability and maximum employment. And these objectives guided our business in the meeting just concluded. As you saw a few moments ago, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the Fed funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75% in support of the Fed's dual mandate. The committee also reaffirmed its policy of maintaining ample reserves in the banking system. Economic activity is expanding at a solid pace, despite elevated uncertainty that owes in part to the conflict in the Middle East. Productivity growth and capital investment both strong. Job gains have kept pace with the workforce, and the unemployment rate has changed little. We recognize that inflation has been running well ahead of the Fed's long-stated inflation goal of 2%. That's been going on for more than 5 years. Persistently high prices are a burden for the American people. But the recent past need not be prologue. I am pleased to report that members of the FOMC are unambiguous and unanimous. This committee will deliver price stability. At any institution, a change in leadership is a natural and timely opportunity to reaffirm its mission, to review current practices, and to consider whether those practices best meet our objectives. My Fed colleagues and I will be working in close collaboration to ask what changes might improve the conduct of monetary policy. On that score, you might have already noticed something: a difference in today's policy statement. It's a bit shorter, a bit simpler, and it dispenses with some older language. That statement just gives you the facts as best we can judge it. Absent also is so-called forward guidance, which we agreed was not well suited to the current policy conjuncture. This afternoon, you also received the usual summary of economic projections. It's been the practice of this committee for participants to submit these projections, and I have encouraged my colleagues to continue to do so. I'm appointing a task force in each of 5 areas that are central to the broad conduct of monetary policy. First, Fed communications. Second, the Fed's balance sheet. Third, our use and reliance on existing data sources. Fourth, productivity and jobs in an era of transformation. And last, the Fed's inflation frameworks. These subjects are timely, consequential, and in my view, worthy of a fresh look. My colleagues and I discussed them with energy and purpose over the last couple of days. For each of these independent task forces, I'm enlisting some of the very best minds, both inside and outside the economics profession. They will be supported by subject matter specialists from our superb Fed staff. And they'll have a straightforward charge. Start with first principles. Ask hard questions. Examine current practice. Consider alternatives. And ultimately propose next steps for policymaker consideration. Since last summer, my colleagues discussed possible improvements in the form and function of Fed communications. This new task force will build on that effort, and I expect propose some well-considered changes, including to the SEP I mentioned a few moments ago. The second task force, the one on balance sheet policy, will review the benefits and risks of the current ample reserves regime and the composition of the Fed's balance sheet. They will assess alternative frameworks for the conduct and operation of monetary policy. The third task force, the one on data, will evaluate new information sources and consider methodological changes to improve data gathering, with the aim of giving policymakers more accurate, relevant, contemporaneous, and perhaps most important, actionable information on the state of our economy. Fourth, the task force on productivity and jobs. It'll survey the pace, the reach, the economic impact of new general purpose technologies, including AI, and explore the implications for the Fed in pursuit of our employment and inflation mandates. The last task force, the one on inflation frameworks, that'll examine the drivers of inflation, first principles, and weigh the full range of ideas for delivering price stability in a changing economy. You'll hear quite a bit more about these task forces and this overall initiative in the coming weeks. Enough for now to make a simple statement. Each task force will serve an objective shared by everyone in the system, shared by everyone around that table that I sat with over the last couple of days. A Federal Reserve that is clear-eyed about its mission, fit for purpose, and focused on the future.
All right, guys. This is a speech from Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chairman of the Federal Reserve in the United States of America. So he was trying to, address journalists, being a financial journalist, as regards the policy of the Fed's rate that has been held at 3.5% and 3.75%. So he talked about open-mindedness, talked about rigorous debate, amidst his the Fed representatives, and talked about commitment to mission. He talked about responsibility and accountability for performance, that they're going to own to their performance as regards the Federal Reserve. So he talked about him getting and his colleagues getting the monetary policy right, and talked about price stability and the maximum employment. And he talked about the awareness for the fact that he is aware of the 5 years inflation that has been happening in the United States of America, and which the benchmark is just 2%. He talks about the awareness of the inflation that has been ravaging the economy for 5 years, and also he talked about that he's going to issue out a report of economic projections through his committee approvals and the rest. Then he talked about the real GDP that is going to happen in the year 2026 and 2027. That the real GDP is going to be 2.2% for 2026 and 2.3% for 2027. And talked about the total PC inflation. The inflation right now is 4.2%. That is going to reduce to like 3.6 in 2026 and 2.3% in 2027. And don't forget that the benchmark for inflation is just 2%. And he just attained the office, and he's going to try his best to reduce it from 4.2% to 3.6%. And in his first year, and in 2027, reduce it further down to 2.3%. And he talked about unemployment rates, that the rate is going to come down to 4.3%. So talked about the federal funds rate, which is the same thing as the interest rate, that is going to be between 3.8%. Don't forget that Kevin Warsh is an hawkish type of Fed chair. Unlike the previous Fed chair, that they are being dovish. which means that they've been cutting interest rates, doing what we call quantitative easing in the economy, such that there's so much money in circulation, and at the end of the day, it has really caused inflation over the last 5 years. So we also discussed on how to improve data. And the central bank's officials in the USA consumes old-fashioned methods of calculating, bringing about some data. And he issued out a 5-point plans, and he said he was going to appoint 5 task force. So one of the things he made mention was the fact that it was going to raise a committee of task force ranging from 5 committee positions, like the Federal Reserve Communication, and that's number 1. The number 2, Federal Reserve Balance Sheet, that's number 2. The number 3, use and reliance on existing data sources. Then number 4, productivity and jobs in the era of transformation. Then number 5, the Federal Reserve Inflation Framework. That the first one, which he talks about, the Federal Reserve Communication. During a speech, this speech that I was having, we have several financial journalists that was present. The Reuters, the New York Times, the Bloomberg TV, the Associated Press, Fox Business, Financial Times, NBC News, CNBC, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Politico, and Bloomberg. We're all involved. They're all financial journalists. Federal Reserve Communication, which means that he's going to be communicating so well with the financial journalists. Don't forget that we need information from them so that we can make decisions in the market. So he talked about how he's going to, disseminate information such that they're going to get timely information and communicating with these financial journalists so that the people can make good financial decisions. Also talked about Federal Reserve Balance Sheet. When we talk about Federal Reserve Balance Sheet, we are talking about the debt rate, the GDP, and the rest. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve. So he's going to set up a task force committee to work on that, and also talks about the use and reliance on existing data sources. He talked about the archaic ways of the previous federal chairmen, in the usage of the archaic data sources. So he talked about how it was going to involve business sectors, economists, technology, and academic experts, to get new analytic. Okay, so he spoke about how it was going to get the business analysts, economists, technology experts, and academic experts that's going to bring them on board, to review, to analyze the new ways of doing things, unlike before. So also the third one, which is the fourth one rather, which is the productivity and jobs in the era of transformation. In this AI boom, people are saying that jobs are going to reduce, in the sense that AI is going to take so many people's jobs. But according to some of these business owners, like the likes of Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, he said people just need to learn the AI, not that it's going to take their job, it's going to make their work faster. So according to him, so he said it was going to involve them, so that they can look at what is going to make the economy better, and not that the job numbers are going to reduce. It claims that the job numbers are meant to start increasing. Also, the last task force that is going to set up talks about the Federal Inflation Framework. The benchmark for inflation is 2%, and right now inflation is sitting at 4.2%. So, like I said previously, that I was going to reduce the inflation rate, and with so many of all these data points, that data sources, that is going to do away with the archaic ways of analyzing data, that is going to bring in new set of rules and information, such that people can use those new analytic technique to generate good data for the Federal Reserve. So that was what he talked about. So that is what it's all about. It entails. So I'm going to see you guys in another episode. So see you guys later. Bye.